Every person has a unique story, opinion, approach that is worth knowing. Be curious.
Paging Dr. Cook. Paging Dr. Cook. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR.
Welcome to the Prescription for Success podcast with your host, Dr. Randy Cook.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Prescription for Success podcast. I'm Dr. Randy Cook, and I'll be your host. Our podcast is a production of MD Coaches, providing leadership and executive coaching for physicians by physicians. To overcome burnout, transition your career, develop as a leader, or whatever your goal might be, visit MD Coaches on the web at mymdcoaches.com, because you're not in this alone. My interview guest today is a board-certified internist who has a very special interest in helping get better health care to the underserved by taking advantage of an often overlooked and highly valuable resource. So let's hear Dr. Jill Einstein explain exactly how that works. I'm really excited today to be talking with Dr. Jill Einstein, who has a really fascinating project to talk to us about. Jill, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here, Dr. Cook.
How's the weather out in California? It's been hot and fiery for a long time. Is it settling down out there?
It has been settling down. Today is actually very rainy, and this past week we have had our first storms in a very, very long time. So we've been very thirsty out here for a good drenching.
So you're not so sorry to see the rain come?
Not sorry at all.
Jill, as you know, we like to keep our show on a first-name basis, and that's what we'll do here. And I want to begin with your origin story, as we always do. Are you a California native?
I like to think of myself that way, but I was actually born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And my parents moved out to San Francisco when I was 9 months old, when my dad got a job working for a women's clothing manufacturing company.
Mm-hmm. So was there any influence within the family that led you toward medical school, or did that come from someplace else?
It really came from someplace else. My father, although he was in the clothing manufacturing business, everyone always thought of him as a doctor because of his demeanor, in terms of, I think, what people thought in a stereotypical way, what they would hope from their doctor, of somebody being kind, attentive, and responsible. And so I think I have a lot of his characteristics. And in addition, obviously, the training to be a doctor. Very
interesting. And when you started undergraduate school at Stanford, which I guess would have been around 1988, you got a BA in American Studies, which doesn't sound like the typical pre-med course of studies. Were you thinking medicine at that point?
Not when I was in college. My interest in medicine actually began before then. When I was in middle school, I was part of a doctors group called Future Doctors that was affiliated with my local hospital, Marin General Hospital. And we would meet every month and get a chance to meet doctors from different specialties. I worked as a candy striper, and I also got to shadow some family friends who were doctors. And I was very interested in that. When I was in high school, I remember I had won an award in actually my history class, and my teacher gave me a book called Future Doctors, Women Need Not Apply. So I still had that interest. Wow. My teachers recognized in me my passions and qualities that might be well suited to being a doctor. And in addition, I loved my high school biology class. I remember in preparation for learning about insects, I started my insect collection the summer before class. And, loved frog dissections. I brought my frog home to do the dissection too. My
What'd
family
your
wasn't
parents
too
think about
pleased.
that?
Not too pleased. But when I started college at Stanford, the world of academia was open to me. And I remember thumbing through the course booklet and just looking in department after department and seeing so many different kinds of classes that I wanted to explore. And so I decided to take my time at school to take classes in political science, history, and literature, which all ended up under the umbrella of American studies. And so throughout college, I did not think I was going to become a doctor.
Well, that's very interesting in that I'm roughly a generation ahead of you. And at the time that I was thinking about medical school, the message that we got from all the medical schools was we want someone with a really well-rounded education. We'll teach you all the science that you need to know when you get to medical school, but we want you to get a broad education. But yet, I can't imagine that there were more than a half a dozen people in my freshman class that were anything other than a science major. So my next question to you is, do you feel like that much more liberal arts education benefited you as a physician?
Well, I'd have to answer yes. I think I think that there are many more people nowadays who sometimes take a chance, take a risk in having different backgrounds, sort of an atypical background before attending medical school. So I didn't feel alone when I started at the Medical College of Wisconsin. And even though I took off 3 years in between college and medical school, there were and that's when I did all of my prerequisites. So I went back to school and I took all of the required courses because I had not taken any of the sciences in college.
Well, go back a little bit and talk a little bit about how that final inspiration came to you. You had a baccalaureate degree, and I'm sure people were standing around saying, well, gee, what are you going to do with your life? What happened, and how did it sort of sink in that medical school was where you wanted to go?
So immediately following college graduation, I ended up working in business. I had done an internship during my last quarter of college up in San Francisco, working for an advertising agency, which was some great real life experience. And my first job outside of college was working for a company called The Sharper Image, which sells all sorts of fancy gadgets. They had an amazing catalog.
Yeah.
So while I was having that first business experience, this little seed inside of me was growing. And I one day had an epiphany that I did indeed want to become a doctor. And I kind of came back around to what it was when I was in middle school and high school that appealed to me about being a doctor. And I really wanted to be able to have an impact on people, on patients, be able to work one-on-one with people, to support them through times of need, to be able to have a hands-on approach, and to help problem solve. And it was really quite an amazing, evolution for me, to be able to try something and realize that wasn't what I wanted to do. And then go back and say, yes, this is what I want to do. And now I'm going to go about achieving it.
I think that's a great story. And I'm also curious that when you began to get into the medical school application process, during those interviews, could you get a feel for how that story was being received? Did you find the interviewers saying, well, yeah, you're just the kind of person we want, or were you getting, are you sure you've made up your mind? What exactly was the reception?
I think it was clear that I had made up my mind because of my commitment to, spending, I think it ended up being about 18 months of taking all of my prerequisites at once and doing some research in dermatology and doing volunteer work. And, I think that there were medical schools that were more receptive to students having more of an alternative background and preparation.
Sure.
But I didn't get any obvious pushback in those interviews.
And then the other thing that I want to get into, and it's something that you sort of alluded to earlier, and that is you started medical school roughly a generation after I did. There were, I think, perhaps 20 women in my class of 125. So upon your arrival, I know there were unquestionably more women in your class than there were in mine. But did you feel that women had been fully accepted in that role when you got there?
So from my perspective, at the Medical College of Wisconsin, I think at the time, my class had about 40% women. I may be incorrect with that, but it was definitely a very high number. And I did feel accepted. I don't know if it was the particular school or the professors, the administration, or just in numbers, having that number of women. And we were very lucky. It was a very large class. We had 200 students. And so I did feel comfortable, confident, and really enjoyed working with women. I'm sure we did not have as many female role models in terms of our professors and doctors with whom we worked. But I did feel good. And I remember at that time, I became president of the American Medical Women's Association. And that was a really great experience for me.
Yeah, I bet it was. Well, I'm glad that was overall a good experience for you. I have actually had conversations with female physicians, even back in that era, who were having a more unpleasant experience. And it's nice to know that we've made some progress. Well, and the other thing that I would like to know is how'd you happen to pick Wisconsin?
So it does seem pretty far away from California.
In distance and in culture, I might add.
So my father grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, and he had ties with Wisconsin. He would go to summer camp up in northern Wisconsin. So I was very comfortable and familiar with the Midwest. And the Medical College of Wisconsin, having a larger class, they not only accepted students from Wisconsin, but from all over the United States. It's a really great institution, a little bit under the radar, but they've got actually amazing research and commitment to primary care as well. And that was really the primary care part was very appealing to me. But it was cold. It was very cold for a California girl.
But apart from the climate, it sounds like it was a really good experience. And when it came time for postgraduate training, it was time to go back to a more temperate climate. So how did you happen to pick California Pacific Medical Center?
So I knew that I wanted to go back to the San Francisco Bay Area where I was raised and where my family still lived. And during my fourth year of medical school, the college allowed us to do off-campus rotations. So I did several rotations at California Pacific Medical Center. And I really liked working in this hospital. It is one of the premier hospitals in San Francisco. And the location was great. And they had a wonderful internal medicine program. And so it just ended up being a great fit.
Yeah. And did you feel early on in medical school that something in primary care was going to be your destiny, or did you struggle with that at all?
I think I came to it later on in medical school. I was interested in surgery. I happened to have a really great surgery rotation. And I know that a lot of people are often intimidated by their surgery attendings, but we just happened to have although he was intimidating, he was just a really great guy. And I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. And we happened to have some great surgical residents. And we had a great team. So I love the teamwork aspect that we all worked super well together and doing the wound care changes, and our surgery residents invited us over to their houses so we could practice suturing on fetal pigs. And that was a positive experience. So that was one area I was thinking about. I also really like dermatology as well. But ultimately, I decided that I wanted to be able to take care of a patient, for a greater breadth of their life and to establish an ongoing relationship with somebody. And that's the part that really appealed to me about internal medicine.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Crow, founder and CEO for MD Coaches. Here on RX for Success, we interview a lot of great medical professionals on how they grew their careers, how they overcame challenges, and how they handle day-to-day work. I really hope you're getting a lot of great information. But if you're looking for an answer to a specific problem, management or administration challenge, or if you're feeling just a bit burnt out, like maybe you chose the wrong career, well, then there's a faster way to get the help you need. No, it's not counseling, it's coaching. RX for Success is produced by MD Coaches, a team of physicians who have been where you are. I know you're used to going it alone, but you don't have to. Get the support you need today. Visit us at mymdcoaches.com to schedule your complimentary consultation. Again, that's mymdcoaches.com, because you're not in this alone.
We'll get back to our interview in just a moment, but right now I want to tell you a little bit about Physician Outlook. If you haven't discovered this remarkable magazine, please do so very soon. It was created by physicians, for physicians, to showcase the intersection between clinical and non-clinical interests, whether it's writing, painting, cooking, politics, and dozens of other topics. Physician Outlook gives a physician perspective. It's available online and in print. It's really unique among physician lifestyle magazines. And like the Prescription for Success podcast, Physician Outlook amplifies the voice of any physician who has something to say. It also engages patients who still believe in physician-led, team-based care. And Prescription for Success listeners can get 3 months free when you enter our promo code RX for Success and select the monthly option at checkout. That's a really great deal on this stunning publication. And now let's get back to today's interview. That's such a rare story in my experience. As a surgeon, I am a little bit embarrassed that the surgeons are looked upon as not so friendly. And I'm just delighted to know that was not the experience that you had and that it had a good influence on you. So getting back to residency training, what was that like for you? Was it a lot of people get in there and they think, oh my goodness, how am I going to get all the work done? Was it terrible? Was it intimidating, or was it just an easy ride?
It was definitely not the latter. It was intense. It really is. I mean, you are a doctor, acting like a doctor, but you certainly haven't had the experience, at that point in your career. I mean, I loved learning, and I loved learning from my patients. I loved learning from the nurses and the rest of the staff at the hospital. And then watching that confidence build over the 3 years of the residency program. But there were times, of course, you're thinking, I don't know what I'm doing exactly. And, somehow you pull it all together and make the right decisions and make it through. But I think that always coming back to the patient and not losing sight of the humanity part of it, and supporting and caring for your patient in the best way possible, through your knowledge, through your skill, but also through your care.
I'm very impressed that you mentioned learning from the nurses. I mean, for me, they are just the best, and I feel like I learned at least as much and maybe more from the nurses than I did from the attendings. Did you kind of have that same experience?
I think so. I mean, they're the ones that are available. They're in the patient rooms. They often know more of that day-to-day, minute-to-minute of what was going on with the patients, and also they were often patient with me or with, and with the other residents. Right. And showing us how to do something. So I think they were a great resource.
I think what I learned from them, I'll be interested to hear from your experience, but, from the attendings, from the physicians around you, you learn the pathophysiology and the natural history of the disease and what to expect on physical exam and how to interpret laboratory results and things of that nature. But the signals and the subtle information that you get from the patients, I think the nurses are so much more in tune to, and if you watch them, you can learn so much. Wouldn't you agree?
I would definitely. Just seeing how they spoke to them, how they spoke to the patients, how they treated them, and then just all the little kind of like tips and tricks at the bedside.
Yeah.
Whether it's how to shift the patient in the bed.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, easily one of the most important parts, if not the most important part of my medical education. It sounds like it had a similar effect on you.
Mm-hmm.
So you make it through all the training. You gotten yourself board certified in internal medicine. And what was next for you at that point?
I knew that I wanted to go into private practice. And of course, having done my residency at California Pacific Medical Center and having exposure to all the different attendings, I knew that I wanted to stay in that community. CPMC, the hospital itself was like a village. And I think many medical centers were that way. And it's interesting that I feel like there's been a little bit of a shift because of hospitalist medicine, because the attendings, often don't come in to see their patients anymore because the hospitalists are there in the hospital, not 24/7, but, every day, and can more efficiently and effectively take care of the patients. But I did really like the knowing everybody, from the attendings to the nurses to the janitors, in my California Pacific Medical Center village. So I knew I wanted to stay in that community, and I had a number of job opportunities to join different private practices. And I ultimately decided to go with a multi-specialty practice, and I took over the long-standing practice of an internist, and I bought her practice. So I owned my own practice, but shared an office with 4 other doctors. There were a couple of other internists and a rheumatologist and a gastroenterologist.
That's kind of nice. You walk right in and the patient base is there. So sounds like a good decision on your part. And it sounds like that era of your practice was a good fit for you. The other thing, in looking at your resume, that stands out to me is that at a almost from the beginning, you seemed to have an interest in looking after the underserved. Where did that come from?
I think it came from, just the training from medical school and residency. In medical school, I remember the impact of doing rotations through the VA hospital. Mm-hmm. I remember during residency doing rotations through the public hospital, San Francisco General, and working in their emergency room. And, even though my medical practice, starting off was serving people who had insurance. Sure. I think always in the back of my mind, wanting to have some sort of impact on people who were underserved.
Sure. And a little bit later on, you decided to sign up for a fellowship with the Wexner Heritage Leadership Program. You want to tell us about that?
Sure. Well, I've always been interested in leadership. I had done a physician leadership program through my hospital, California Pacific Medical Center. And then I had the opportunity through the Jewish community to be selected for the Wexner Heritage Program, which was for Jewish lay leaders in the San Francisco Bay Area. And actually, there are different cohorts throughout the country that occurred simultaneously. And it was an opportunity to sort of receive an adult Jewish education with fellow lay leaders, and then also to be able to share leadership issues, amongst each other. So it was a group of 20 of us who may be involved in their synagogue boards, a Jewish philanthropic organization board, the Jewish Community Center board. And we met every week for 2 years. And then we also had several in-person opportunities. And it was at a time of my life when I wanted to learn more about Jewish history, because I wasn't raised, having a strong background in that.
Sure.
And having the potential to learn with peers and enhance my leadership skills. So it was a very profound experience, because I met these incredible people that my husband and I continue to be friends with, and to this day.
Yeah, sounds like a really great experience, and I gather had a significant impact on the remainder of your career. And I don't want to move ahead too quickly, and we can retrack anything that you would like to, but the thing that I would most like to learn some more about is the Maven project, for which you are now is it the director of physician acquisition or
physician engagement?
Engagement. So in any case, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little of the background of the Maven project and where you fit in.
Wonderful. Well, I'm really excited to tell you about the Maven project. I have been the director of physician engagement for the past 4 years. The Maven project is a telehealth nonprofit that connects physician volunteers with primary care providers that work in safety net clinics across the country. And through our telehealth platform, our physician volunteers provide medical consults, medical education, and one-on-one mentoring to the primary care providers. And the word Maven in Maven Project, we use as an acronym for Medical Alumni Volunteer Expert Network. And Maven is an expert. And
brilliant use of the word, I might add.
Thank you. It is just perfect for this group.
Is.
So the Maven Project was founded probably about 7 years ago by Dr. Lori Green. She's an actively practicing OBGYN in San Francisco. She's an incredibly intelligent and inspiring and active person.
Did you know her before you knew about the Maven Project, or did one lead to the other?
So I did know Lori not closely, but she also has her practice at California Pacific Medical Center. So we shared a number of patients together. Mm-hmm. And when I had made some transitions in my medical career, and I knew that I wanted to stay connected with medicine, but use my business leadership and community building skills, I reached out to her because I had heard that she had started this nonprofit, and the job opportunity became available, and everything ended up working out. So Dr. Green had been president of the Harvard Medical School Alumni Association. And as she was leading meetings, she recognized that the Harvard Med School alums were in the peri-retirement phase of their lives. And she saw how much passion and knowledge that they still had, even though they weren't working full-time or they had transitioned out of their practices. And then knowing what was happening in healthcare in America, with more and more Americans losing their health insurance or becoming underinsured, and more of them flocking to federally qualified health centers and free and charitable clinics, she thought, how can I connect the expertise of these doctors with the needs of these clinics? And so with the rapid growth of telemedicine, and this is pre-COVID that her idea was born.
You guys were way ahead of the curve on this.
We were. So we were positioned well, obviously, particularly in COVID. And so she founded this organization, and it's been really growing, especially over the past couple of years. 17
states, I understand.
Actually, 18 states as of today, and we have partnerships with 73 clinic operators, and they represent 205 individual clinic sites across the United States.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you tell us a little bit more about the nuts and the bolts? So you engage these physicians who are actively retired or approaching retirement, and you train them to do what exactly?
We have currently about 145 physician volunteers, and they represent 55 different specialties. So adult and pediatric care, primary care, and specialty care. And to be a Maven Project volunteer, you do not need to be retired, but it's especially appealing to our recently retired doctors. Mm-hmm. About 75% of our volunteers are retired, and then the others are either in part-time practice, full-time practice, or work in industry. When we have a need for a volunteer in a certain specialty, I either have a list of people who have previously made inquiries about becoming a volunteer, or I'll reach out through different networks that I have to, if I'm looking for somebody very specific. And they have to submit a lot of documentation. We have a full credentialing process. Mm-hmm. They have an interview with me. And once we bring them on, they get trained on our telehealth platform just to learn how to respond to email consults or how to accept a video consult. And then they're put on our telehealth platform. And then a primary care provider in one of our safety net clinics may have a question. Like, for example, let's say there's a family nurse practitioner in a rural clinic in Washington State, and she may be seeing a patient with diabetes. And the nurse practitioner may be fresh out of her schooling and suddenly is thrown into seeing 20 or 25 patients a day. And her more senior provider in her clinic may not have time to be able to answer her questions. There may be a barrier to getting her patient to see a specialist. Let's say it's a 2-hour drive to Seattle to see an endocrinologist, or it might take 3 or 4 months for the patient to get in to see an endocrinologist, or it might be sort of more of a simple question where you wouldn't want to necessarily force the patient to drive that distance to get that question answered.
Sure.
Yeah. So that nurse practitioner would log on to the Maven Project and see the list of 55 specialties and click on endocrinology, and then be able to submit a brief history of present illness and what her questions are to an endocrinologist, and then get a response back within 2 business days. And our volunteers actually respond in less than 8 hours, which is pretty incredible.
And is it a written response, or more like a Zoom meeting, or how do they actually communicate?
So there are different options. Most of the providers submit through email on our platform. So it's called an e-consult. So about 75% of the consults are done that way. There is an option to do a video consult, but they pre-schedule for that video consult. So the provider will, see that a volunteer is open like on Tuesdays between 3 and 5, and then they'll book an appointment with them to be able to discuss via video. And all of the consults are done from the physician volunteer to the provider. It does not include any interaction with the patient. So it's really an advisory role.
Which means there's none of the worry about licensing and state credentialing and things of that nature because it's just provider to provider. Is that right?
Exactly.
What a brilliant idea. And appears to be catching on. Obviously, it's growing fairly quickly. I don't know what else to say other than what a brilliant idea. And it sounds like Dr. Green found exactly the right person to help recruit physicians.
It's been a great pleasure for me to be able to work with our physician volunteers. And
yeah, I bet it has. And that brings up another question, and that is, what is the response like? And if someone hearing this podcast is fascinated with the idea and wants to be a part of it, how do they go about becoming a part of the network?
Sure. Well, there are different ways to get involved with the Maven project. So there are physician volunteer opportunities, and people can go to our website, which is www.mavenproject.org, and they can go to Join Maven tab, and they'll see a tab for volunteers, and they fill out an inquiry form, and they upload their CV at that time. And then I'll get back to them to let them know if there are any opportunities open in their particular specialty. So that's the way to find out about volunteer opportunities. If people have connections to free and charitable clinics or federally qualified health centers who might benefit from becoming a partner with us, we always love those connections and introductions as well. And there's also on that same tab of Join Maven, they can submit a connection for us in that way. Mm-hmm. And lastly, and probably very importantly, is our funding opportunities. So we're always looking for different funding sources. So we are funded through individual donations and family foundations, corporate grants and government grants. And so there are a lot of ways to make contributions and connect in that way.
That's a very important part of it. And so even though the project is only officially active in 18 states, from what I understand, a physician, regardless of where they're located, can actually participate in the project. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct. So you could be a physician in Missouri with a Missouri state medical license and become a Maven Project volunteer. And then you can provide medical consults through our telehealth platform to a primary care provider who could be in New York or Illinois or Arizona, because it's provider to provider and you don't have to have a state-specific license.
What a great idea. And as I understand it, your duties include data tracking, credentialing for volunteers. Are you also in charge of the bi-monthly newsletter?
Yes. So we do a lot of communications.
And are you still able to maintain your practice and do all that?
I decided actually a while ago that I was not going to continue with clinical practice, even though I loved taking care of my patients, and it was really an honor and a privilege to do so. I had, additional interests and skills that I wanted to pursue, and so I don't see patients anymore.
Sooner or later, we all have to decide how much time we have to do the things that we want to do. And it is a wise person who understands where to draw the line. So congratulations to you on that.
Thank you.
Jill, this has really been fascinating. And I've particularly enjoyed the conversation about the Maven project. It sounds like such a brilliant idea. And I know it must be a much welcomed resource to those people who are practicing in areas where it's hard to get in touch with an expert. So congratulations to you. Congratulations to Dr. Green and to everyone who is associated with the Maven project. And I wish you much success with that. I have really enjoyed speaking with you, but what I want to do at this point is what I think is the most important part of the show, and that's where I get out of the picture. So I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to close my mic, and Dr. Jill Einstein will give us her personal prescriptions for success.
Dr. Cook, thank you so much. And I look forward to sharing my prescriptions for success. First is to learn the art of listening. Start with your friends and family. Expand to listening to your colleagues, your patients. Every person has a unique story, opinion, approach that is worth knowing. Be curious. You can learn so much from others and apply it to your own life. Be an active listener by asking the right questions and engaging in the conversation. It shows you care. Number 2, seek mentors throughout your life and be a mentor. I've never had a mentor in a formal sense, but I'm always on the lookout for people around me who have aspects that I admire. Every board of directors on which I've served, I've learned from the people around me, and they have served as role models. I've observed their leadership, communication, and organizational styles and incorporated parts into my own. Even if you don't have a formal mentoring relationship, consider creating your own informal advisory council, like a kitchen cabinet. Even if you're not in the same room, there are people in your life who trust, admire, and give good advice. It could be a family member, a friend, a therapist, your work manager, the president of your company or organization. And always be on the lookout for opportunities to mentor others, even if it's not in a formal way. People, even though you may not know it, often look to you for how you do things and how you approach things. Third is create community. Be a part of or create communities in your life. For me, this has been a great source of satisfaction, whether it be my 2 book clubs, my work as a nonprofit board member, sitting on the board of my synagogue, and even in my work with the Maven project. I've gotten so much satisfaction in creating a community amongst all of the Maven Project physician volunteers. Be a part of making connections either as a member of an informal or formal organization, and think about being the one to reach out to others, to connect them, to bring them into the conversation, to ask for their opinion. It's really a joy being a part of a common cause or interest. And then lastly, I'll leave you with have an understanding that you are always evolving and understand the skills and environments that make you flourish. Be versatile and open and recognize that you can reinvent yourself or at least pivot with the right support around you to accomplish the things that make you lead a good and happy life, whether it is in your family and personal life or whether in your work life. And I love this quotation from T.S. Eliot, and I had actually used it in my medical school application. It goes like this: "We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we began and to know the place for the first time." These are my prescriptions for success.
Well, Jill, you have certainly accumulated a good bit of wisdom along the way, and we are grateful that you were able to join us today and share with us. Before we go, I want to give you an opportunity to tell people where they can find you and what you do.
Wonderful. Well, you should all check out the Maven Project, and you can find us online at www.mavenproject.org. And please look to see how you can join Maven, either as a clinic partner, being a safety net clinic, or being a physician volunteer, or being a donor. We would love to have you involved. And you can also reach out to me personally. My email address is jeinstein@mavenproject.org. So it's JEINSTEIN@mavenproject.org.
Well, Dr. Jill Einstein, Director of Physician Engagement for the Maven Project, thank you so much for being with us today. It has been a great pleasure.
Dr. Cook, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you'd like to learn more about today's guest, head on over to our Patreon page where you can access exclusive content, including a rapid-fire Q&A session with our guest and more. Never want to miss a future episode? Visit our website at rxforsuccesspodcast.com to subscribe. You can even offer your very own prescription for success. As always, we appreciate a review and a 5-star rating, as well as suggestions on future show topics. And finally, special thanks to Ryan Jones, who created and performs our theme music for the show. That's all for now, so be sure to fill your prescription for success with my next episode.